Michael. We're getting at a bad kitty. All cleaned up. You can still see some of the evidence from that capacitor exploding there. But we're going to get all that cleaned up. I need to go ahead and scrub down these solder lugs. Then we'll get underway. All right, Michael, and we're back. We are back. So I went on a crusade with this amp last night. And it was a hardware crusade because apparently the gauge of aluminum being used here and then the thickness of the faceplates, the front and rear, doesn't allow. And really it comes down for some of these bits of hardware, it comes down to like the isolation. And right now I'm pointing at the jacks, you can't see. All of that thickness adds up and doesn't allow any substantial amount of the threads to protrude through. So the company quickly found out, and I guess they didn't care, that you're not able to use lock washers on any of the pots, on any of the jacks. The only lock washers that are present here are on the actual the nuts, or Kep's nuts, and that's it. And then you have some other types of locking fasteners here, but none of it's on anything of consequence that your hand's going to touch. So I've gone through the entire thing, and this is it. This is where we are right now. We've done a full cap job. I'm about to load up some EL34s, and then we'll do some torture testing. So the tone knob, and it's just a rotary selector. Let me get you in there. And I'm making it worse. Behind the tip of this chicken head knob, there's a small punch out in the aluminum on this front panel, through which protrudes a locking tab on the switch itself, which will ostensibly prevent it from rotating when you're turning the knob here, the control. So I'm not able to make it. I would like this to more be at the 2 o'clock position so that its entire range of travel is from, say, 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. So it's more symmetrical. But who's going to see that? But I know it's there and it aggravates me. It just does. So that's a little bone of contention I have with the design of this particular amp, is that the locking tab of the switch does not meet the punch out for it. So I was only able to tighten it down as much as I was able, and I'm sure while it's certainly secure, if you apply any torque to this, I'm sure it will want to turn. And the same thing with each of these potentiometers. And I left the knobs off so you can just see that there's just enough threads to accommodate the hardware. And I'm also disappointed. I haven't worked on one of the newer BadCats, but I'm going to say that with this era, it feels like the knobs that would be on I don't know, an early 90s PV, where it feels like the threads are pot metal, and even the hardware to some extent. So you can't tighten it too much, or else it'll pull the threaded bushing part from the body of the pot, as it would on those older PVs. So just want to be careful with that. All of the big carbon comps here, including the oxides, are way within spec. We don't need to change any of those. What happened was you had maybe a heater to cathode short in the power tubes, and then it ended up pulling too much current, and it overwhelmed the specs of these atoms here, which aren't really the best. And you can see a rupture in the casing. What happens is the electrolyte boils, and then the weakest part of the case becomes the vent. Just split right in half, and then the adjacent cap which was this guy, it burned the jacket off of it, and then this cap started swelling. This cap measures about 90K. It's become a resistor. This one, I'm not even going to test it. It's just done. And the same goes with this cap here. These are incredibly inexpensive caps, as are these little guys. I'm really surprised every time I open up one of these amps and see these caps. And it's kind of disappointing given the price point of these amps. I do like, I do think that there's been some improvement in the way that the chassis are laid out. So that's nice. But outside of that, you know, there's a lot of construction techniques here that, that would be frowned upon. And while it's certainly permissible, and it certainly proves a point that, hey, you can get away with certain things, such as making solder joints like this on these backup rectifier diodes. While you can have a tack solder joint hold up over time, which these have, it's not the best idea. You could put a little twist in there. It won't look as nice. Or you can maybe look at 5408s, which maybe I haven't done any measurements. They're not concerned about exceeding the amp rating, and it's more about voltage. So I don't know, but they could have still twisted them in place. So just some little things like that. And then here on a rectifier, and you have the rectifier's primary filtering source. Let me find it here. And you can see here, not that this is a bad rectifier, it's not, and it's all clever. The name of the game for this amp is being clever. You could have twisted these up to lock on top of this before any solder was applied. But it just goes to prove the point that you can get away with murder when you're assembling these amps. You can get away with it. But they took the extra time and expense to put silicone on all of the hardware as an anti-vibration countermeasure. You can see it here. What I was going to do, because I never liked the way they suspended the cathode bypass caps in these, what I was going to do was, I still have it out. I was going to take this little guy here, and I was going to run it onto this bit of hardware right here, and that would have created a much nicer tie point with much less stress on these solder joints and the components themselves. Just a little thing like that, where the caps could be fitted to this, and then you could just run some flying leads over to their respective terminals. But that is outside the scope of this. So we're going to let her be what she's going to be. I'm not being commissioned to improve the design on this. And there's really not much that would need to be done. At any rate, let's get this thing wrapped up. Let me get some tubes in there. All right, we've got you hooked up with some new EL34s. Let's go with our initial power up in a current limited circuit. I like it. Like it a lot. Michael, we are 100% stable and ready to do some testing. All right, we are plugged in. Everything's warming up. Everything's upside down. That's very loud. Oh, she's still spicy on a bias. But man, she sounds good. Sort of, for me, it's like old 70s Marshall territory. And that's not a bad place to be. Especially if you take advantage of the master volume or a big ass 412.